Welcome to The Business. I'm Ted Kofi, and in this show, we break down business and its impact on Africa and Africans. Our business affects every one of us, whoever we are and wherever we are. Hello and welcome. In the news this week, MTN and Orange Group, two of Africa's largest mobile operators and mobile money providers, have announced a joint venture. Now, Mawali makes it possible to send money in real time between mobile accounts and at low cost.
But this is her mother.
The number you have dialed does not exist.
Some things shouldn't be rushed.
Figures show that African tech enjoyed a record 53% increase in investment in 2017, reaching $560 million. And the continent is bracing itself for a steady stream of Series A funding rounds over the next couple of years. And finally, after voting in their first female president, Ethiopia agrees a multi-million-pound loan from the EU to support female entrepreneurs, thus improving women's productivity, economic growth, and their empowerment. Joining me to discuss these stories and provide her always much valued insight is the journalist and African affairs commentator Vuyiswa Ngobongwana. And in part two, I'll be talking about the African startup scene with the co-founders of Senditu, a company looking for Series A funding now that also combines mobile phones and money. Okay, Visa, let's look at this hookup between MTN and Orange. This is surely a fantastic opening to bank the unbanked.
Absolutely, and it makes entrepreneurial sense for these companies to join hands to increase profit for everyone, or at least the potential for that. And that's the nature of capitalist acquisition and growth. You either grow or you die.
Absolutely.
So that's what's moving this. And finally, the biggest market, one of the biggest markets in the world, is finally being tapped in a meaningful way.
Yes. Mawali actually means mobile network interoperability, which means that people can be on different platforms and still share money. Now, the beauty of this is that it's going to make markets which are in remote communities, which are unbanked, it's going to pull them right into the marketplace.
Which is
that
fantastic,
wonderful?
yeah, because a lot of people that own mobile phones get really annoyed, I know I do, when I can't access or have to pay more to talk to someone who is on another network. So it's making complete sense that whatever platform you're on, you've got access to this service. And to me, that is huge, huge progress.
Well, the wonderful thing about it also is the fact that it's showing the governments which way development's going to go. Because the digital pathway is available to places where roads haven't been built,
Exactly.
Other communications aren't available, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. Any tech-focused initiatives are where the growth is, and nowhere more so than in Africa. I mean, we've seen it in China and in the East, but why not Africa? And finally, I mean, we're last in the queue, aren't we? Right?
Yes.
That's just part of the legacy of the colonial situation and post-colonial situation. But there's a fantastic opportunity for young, innovative, forward-thinking entrepreneurs like the ones you're going to speak to in part two to take advantage of this. But I still feel it's kind of put in a way that puts the Africans at a disadvantage. We are last in the queue, and the fact that a very small percentage of per capita funding is being utilized in this industry compared to Europe and America, and it should be a lot more. And I hope
we'll come to that we'll come to that when we discuss the startup scene. But for now, I mean, you're talking about, of the 44 countries which are available, this MTN Orange initiative is going to open up 22 of them. with their remote communities. And I mean, for every business, the most important thing is to get a connection between a merchant, somebody who's selling goods, services, or whatever, and their consumers. And so, again, you are absolutely weaponizing the huge growth in population in Africa, and you're making that market open to African entrepreneurs. Isn't that fantastic?
I really have no complaints about the initiative, and I see it as just part of a logical progression, really. I mean, I don't think we should be going, yeah, how innovative you are. It's a logical progression if you want to keep growing.
Yes. Right. Let's talk about the 53% increase in tech company investment, Vuiswa.
I can only smile when I hear that. Really good news, whichever way you look at it, because it gives more opportunities for innovative thinkers to take advantage of the current playing field. But it also speaks more to investors being able to see, well, here's an untapped market. We've walked towards it, shuffling our feet at snail's pace. But now the world economic system is in such a condition that we really have to take this on board. Well, I'm sorry if that sounds cynical, but that's really the motivating factor.
No, sure. But I mean, the point is, we referred earlier on to Series A funding, which is basically when a startup which is looking to scale up appeals to
the big players.
The big players, the venture capitalists, large private investors. We're talking beyond the range of friends and family here. And of course, it requires a standard of due diligence, care, planning, and entrepreneurship, which takes things up to the next level. And of course, these people take shares in the business, and once they've committed their money to it, you know, you're under the cosh.
They want profit, and really it's the terms of engagement that I'm interested in, and it's beautiful for young African entrepreneurs because it forces them to shoot for the stars at a very high standard if they want to be competitive in any meaningful way. But I think at the end of the day, the proof of the pudding will actually be in how many of these startups actually start to build businesses within the continent. A lot of them are running to Silicon Valley to show off and attract the funding. Why aren't they doing it on the continent more?
Well, here's the point, is that these are very optimistic figures. I mean, the increase is enormous. Although, if you consider the amount of money being spent per capita on tech startups, in Africa, it's 50 cents, whereas in America, it's something like $74.
Right.
So there is a very, very long way to go in this.
Absolutely, and I think in Europe it's $150, isn't it? So you really...
Europe it's 18,
Oh, you know?
Yeah, it's slightly less. But,
okay.
But the amount of money being invested in startups is enormous. But surely this indicates that I think that the upward climb has just started.
Exactly, and the projection is that there will be up to $1 billion in funding in 2019. So it really is a matter of how prepared African entrepreneurs are.
Let's wait for it and see. Now, finally, it looks as though having a female president is paying dividends for Ethiopia on the world stage. Let's discuss this European loan for women's business. $34 million from the EIB in Europe to the Women's Entrepreneurship Development Project in Ethiopia.
It makes complete economic sense, really, because Ethiopia is a fairly safe haven for investors. You know, it's built up its reputation with foreign investors over the years. There's a degree of peace, quote unquote, that actually makes investors feel comfortable. But the political playground in Ethiopia has changed with a female at the head. But that's just a token gesture as far as I'm concerned, because it doesn't translate until maybe 2-3 decades later. But I think it's a good indicator, and also kind of this initiative of giving more money to build up female businesses it makes complete political sense for the European Investment Bank, but for the Ethiopian economy, it gives the Ethiopian leader, female leader, an opportunity to really champion female businesses. And I think it can actually happen in an environment where people are desperate for that kind of economic growth.
The interesting thing is that actually they've been making these initiatives for quite a while. Something like 10,000 businesses have actually been sponsored on women entrepreneurship development loans. And they're lending $2 million per month to these women's businesses. But it's interesting, you raise your slight cynicism at the fact that, is this a token gesture? And are there other things government need to put in place to really empower women in Ethiopia?
Precisely. I mean, what they seem to do, like many African governments, is wait for the money to roll in from outside without giving enough consideration to infrastructure issues that need to be dealt with on a practical level, how women are actually treated within the society. And that's why my optimism, my cynicism is balanced with optimism, because there's a female leader who will raise these issues. A male leader wouldn't even think of it.
Okay, so there are environmental issues.
Yeah.
Now, join me in part 2, when I continue discussing the African startup scene with Ibrahima Sunamo and Takwana Tiaranini, founders of Senditu. See you in a moment. Welcome back to The Business. Now, in part 1, we discussed how the African startup scene is coming into its own with record investment last year. Joining me now are 2 men who know all about that, as they have not only launched their own tech startup, but are now going for their Series A round of funding. Ibrahima Sumano, Takwana Tiaranini, thank you for joining us on The Business.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay. Senditu, the name tells what it does, doesn't it?
Yes.
Whose idea was that?
It was a collective idea. Yeah. It was a collective idea. The company was called Ozarimit before, and we changed it to Senditu to basically to have it, said in the brand. So the brand says it all.
Right.
And easy to pronounce, and it's cool as well as a name.
So what I like about this is your branding reflects the everyday use of this product. It says send it to, with a little smiley face on the end. Great branding.
That's it, and I like the fact that you picked up the issue about smiling, because that's essentially what it does. I mean, every minute you send sort of credit back to your mom in Ghana, Nigeria, the first thing they normally do is a smile.
Absolutely.
Oh, look at my son, just sent me from London, just send me some credit, and before you know it, like that smile is sort of, hence the reason why we have a tagline called Send a Smile Home.
Yeah.
Send a smile home. That's a terrific, terrific tagline. Yeah. So, in 2 years, your valuation has absolutely skyrocketed. You are close to 5 million?
5 million, yes.
Correct, yeah.
Yes. It's like you said, in 22 months or 24 months now, we've managed to build a brand that a lot of people have identified with. So, it's the community has come along and rallied on and given us excessive growth in a very short period of time. And like Ibrahim can attest to that, how incredible it has been, just having people, that sense of ownership. I don't think so many businesses that we have that serve our community tend not to be owned by us. So this has been something that we've come and said, you know what, we need to address this. Let's address our own needs, and then we build something for Africa by Africans.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, there are other big corporates out there right now. For example, Mawali, which is the new MTN Orange connection. Yes. Do you perceive that as in any way a competitor to yourselves?
I mean, we see that as more of an opportunity for us, because what we are is a diasporan business, so business for Africans in the diaspora,
right?
Who generally support their families back home. And if one thing about Mawali is it allows this interoperability of different mobile wallets.
So you see it as an enabler?
It is an enabler for us.
For your business?
For our business, allowing more people in the diaspora to support their families back home without having to go through the frictions of using different platforms.
Okay. So I was going to just to quickly add to what Ibra is saying. The one thing that we like to say at Senditu is the only thing we can control is our effort. And the perfect example for us is at one point Nike was a new company, and Adidas had been in the market way more longer, and they had way more market share. But today it's a totally different share. So the only thing we can control and try and make sort of focus on is our own effort, and pay a little mind to. But like Ibra said, it's really and truly an opportunity for partnership, things of that nature.
Fantastic. Yeah. Let me just zero in on this. But for your product to continue to reach the heights and to kind of lap up that 4.5 billion potential customer base, you need to become a household name, don't you?
Yes.
Now, I've looked at some of your stuff. I mean, I know that you've sponsored beauty pageants and so on. What are you doing in your marketing and communications to reach the grassroots? Because that's where the usefulness of this product really is going to be felt, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What's your marketing hack?
So marketing. We use a mix of marketing strategy, but what we're trying to do is to build, like, as Takwana said. If you look at our branding, a lot of love and care is put into it,
Right.
to position it next to the big brands.
Right.
But at the same time, we're doing the grassroots, effort going into the communities.
Right.
Educating, our communities about our business, about the brand, about the.
So
the
what kind
benefit
of
it.
community outreach activities have you been doing, and in which countries?
We've done, I mean, most of the bulk of our marketing is in England, since we're based in England.
Sure.
But what we're trying to do is get into a position whereby we know Tet is from Ghana, so we try and speak that exactly Chale, Kumasi type of language, where we speak, so it's very, like, we cater to a diverse sort of audience. Africa is not a country, as you know, so we're trying to speak the local language. It's very difficult. It comes with its fair share of challenges. But when we get into these sort of conversations with our people, and then they reciprocate, the love has been amazing. And I don't know if my face shows that, but Africa has had a lot of love for us, and 37 of the sort of countries that we sent to, a bulk of them have been in the motherland. So being from Africa, that I couldn't be more proud.
That's terrific. My next question is really about the fact that you're based in England, but you're focused on the diaspora.
Yes, that's correct.
Earlier on, we ran a story about a massive increase, 53% increase, and it's expected to go following year to 100% increase in tech startup funding. What's your view on that? Is that something that's realistic for us to expect?
Well, it will be. I mean, if you think of Africa being the fastest growth opportunity continent, next frontier market. By 2015, it will have the largest population in the world, and the majority of which will be a younger population. There's a need to build hospitals, infrastructure, health, and all the opportunities. These problems are all opportunities that are present in Africa. So, the import or influx of investment on the continent is not going to stop. It will only increase. That's the sad thing is who the investment is coming from.
Right.
The diaspora. If you look at the diaspora in terms of the effort that they put in by sending remittance into the continent, it's not really having much impact, or it's not contributing to improving those economic conditions.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it was said that it's somewhere in the region of 60 billion a year, which is actually far more.
There's a lot
investment
more.
by the diaspora in Africa is far more than foreign aid that's going in.
That's correct.
But nobody seems to tap that.
Yeah, it's because they haven't got the opportunities. So brands like Sendito, that's what we are also thinking about.
Yes.
How can we allow the diaspora to also take part of this economic transformation
In the growth. To drive and participate in the growth and profits.
And bring about ownership. Yeah. So that's it is so investment is not going to stop. It will just increase, but we need to shift it from who the investment is coming from.
Very good.
Which is very important.
Very good. Tell me, now, in terms of the challenges that you've met, I mean, your success has been spectacular. I mean, you're in healthcare, your management information systems, accidental entrepreneurs, as you said. What has been your biggest challenge in growing the business to a net worth of about £5 million in 2 years?
I think, and we laugh about this because in business, when problem number one gets solved, problem number two gets a promotion.
Absolutely.
Really. But one of the, there's been many, and I think one of, now that we're at Wanga TV, I think this would be a perfect one to discuss. We don't tend to get platforms that are exceptional as your platform, because we cover a niche sort of audience, and this niche audience is considered not to be in the broader interest of these are bigger TV networks are not necessarily trying to cover the 2% migrant population that lives in the UK. So this has been one of the sort of challenges that we tend to get, and we're so honored and grateful to come and speak our story on a platform like this. But like I said, problems are the one people without any problems are people in the cemetery. So problems are a sign of life, we say.
They are the challenges that we must confront. So media and communications has been an issue for you.
Yes.
What are the other challenges?
I mean, the other challenge is, as a business that's looking to grow as well, is always finding ways where you can bring that step up growth, that scaling opportunities. And as Takwana mentioned, we're targeting a different sort of consumer.
Right.
African, it doesn't matter how long an African stays in the diaspora in Europe, you still, Ghana, you'll still eat kenke and banku, and so you won't change your ways.
Right.
And the mentality, the psychology is the same as well. So we have to tap into that.
Right.
And dealing with a different, different segment and also different geographies in terms of nationalities. The one way of marketing in Nigeria is a different way of marketing to a Ghanaian, for instance, or Zimbabwean or Guinean. So we have to have strategies. We have to adopt strategies that are unique
and relevant to your circumstances, situation, and your market needs.
But also unified as well. So we need to be able to deploy a strategy that can, the whole continent can identify with.
Global reach, but specific impact in niche markets.
So those are daily challenges that we face. But we love them because, as Takwana said, you solve one problem, the next problem gets promoted, and it's a constant. It's a perpetual basic process here.
Good. Ibrahima, Takwana, thank you so much for joining us on the program, and we really look forward to the stellar rise of Sendid 2. And sadly, that's all we have time for this week. It just remains for me to thank Vuiswa Ngobongwana and, of course, my special guests, Ibrahima and Takwana. Now, don't forget, the business is now online, so wherever you are in the world, go to yangatv.com to catch every single episode. I'm Ted Kofi, goodbye, and thank you for watching The Business.